Welcome in, welcome in. What's going on, guys? How am I holding up, Randy? Well, apparently somehow I ended up getting a little stuffy nose, but I'm alright. Jay, yo, Jay, you're funny, bro. Nah, I can't right now, so we're gonna have to hold up on Shakira until my voice comes back. I got a little congestion right now, Jay. What's going on, Krishna? What's going on, TY? Robo voice, appreciate that. Sound echoey? Right now? Give me the go ahead. What's up, Harsh? Alright, I'm assuming that I'm good. I got no response, right? I appreciate that. All right, well, what's going on, everyone? What's going on? What's going on? I know it's Monday. That was probably the biggest pump that I ever saw today, dating back to like February earlier this year, and then dating back to November of last year, which was insanely crazy. I appreciate that, guys. So biggest pump. The one thing I don't like days like this, and the reason I don't like days like this is because you end up forcing yourself, trying to convince yourself to really chase, and that's really what you ended up doing if you were one of those that really made money. You were forcing plays on tech, and pretty much in the matter of Amazon, Microsoft, whether it was Facebook, Apple, all these different tech names, and of course I can't leave out AMD and Nvidia, the two biggest chip names right there. So that's the one thing I don't like is the matter of, we're already up. Nasdaq was up about 200 and something points by market open, and you're pretty much just chasing because guess what? We didn't really get any kind of meaningful pullback by open. So that was the one thing I didn't like. The one name that did go after was Tesla primarily. That was the one play that I pretty much made for the day, and I pretty much called it quits right there because I'm not a person to really chase plays, and this is where discipline comes in, right? Because I could have chased Amazon, especially after we had the Amazon Rapid that went off, and that play just went from up $30, and I think by lunchtime or so, it was up close to $90 on the day. So that would have been a beautiful one as well, but that's why I say you would have ended up chasing that name, and it was already up about $30 and holding longer than the Rapid would have recommended. So that's what I wanted to point out as far as that. I'm hoping, even though I see futures are already pushing right now, and we'll get into what futures look like right now. But I'm hoping that we don't necessarily gap up, and of course we do have Jay Powell talking I think 3 or 4 times this week. We're gonna have a lot of activity, a lot of news that's really gonna probably drop within the next couple of days here. So my best advice right now, especially not just this week, but no, the following week as well, just trade light. And I'm sure Tom are already pinged the entire server, pretty much advising you guys of that. And that's the best thing that I can say right now. All right, is as you see all these drastic moves that's really taking place overnight by market opening, it's very dried up, the price action. So you want to be very careful and just stay a little light. That's the best thing I can say right now. All right. Let's jump right in then. Let's get into feuds here real quick. I actually do have Nasdaq feuds pulled up here. As you see, I have a little bit of a broadening wedge here, and I have a little bit of my demand zone right here. That was the prior little drop that we ended up having going back to last week. And I do have my fibs here, looking for that upside here as long as we hold on Nasdaq. Once we hold 16,378, which we're already pushing as it is, then my next target is 16,471. And I'm looking next at 16,602 before we potentially get to all-time highs if this rally is really what we're expecting it to be to continue. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look at. I'm really not leaning towards this actually going back to all-time highs. That's just my preference or my comment. The other thing that I do want to point out here is that you also have the potential for a head and shoulders. If you also notice, you have a left shoulder right here. You have that massive head that you just created, and now you're potentially forming that right shoulder as we get that curl up. So you could end up curling and then coming right back down into that demand zone that we ended last week. All right, Sid, what's up? So that's what I will point out as well is that you do have a potential head and shoulders here within this expanding wedge that I built. So that's one thing that I will caution you on. That's why I say stay light because the direction is a little bit mixed here. The other thing that you can point to is that you have an inverted left shoulder here. You have an inverted head, and we could potentially drop tomorrow morning ahead of Powell talking, I believe around 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. We could potentially drop by morning, in which that's going to form a right inverted shoulder here. So that's another scenario in which we could see play out. So it literally feels like it's going to be very news based. determining the direction. So that's why I say stay light. All right, that's the best advice I can say right now. And I am cash over tonight. I did not go into anything holding overnight because after such a massive run, and especially Jay Powell talking so early tomorrow morning, I'm not trying to get my hands in the middle of all that volatility that may end up happening once we get some kind of stupid news alert. All right, that's the best thing I will say there. Moving over real quick is S&P feuds real quick. If I zoom this one out just a bit, nothing's really changed here as far as my formation. We still have that expanded, broadening wedge here. The one thing that I will point out is you see that little yellow circle that I highlighted. That was actually, we ended up breaking down on the support. As you see, we went right into my demand zone, which I still have. I'm still keeping that there. So I know if we end up retracing down where that prior low was, that prior zone that I want to see us get back down to. But we actually rejected perfectly right off of where the resistance is that we broke down from previously. All right. So that's one thing that I'm noticing here. So I want to see if we're able to reclaim that prior support that we had. Do we end up getting back into the expanding wedge here and reclaiming, the so-called bull market that we're looking at right now after today's price action? Or do we end up getting this, confirming this rejection and then going back down to make, another leg towards the downside? So that's what I'll be watching here. Just key levels that I'm watching is holding 4640 on S&P Futures, or either to the upside is breaking 4705. All right, that'll really give us our direction by morning. And then of course my zone here, and once we do start to break down, then I'm looking below 4592, in which that's when it's gonna get really brutal. All right, and like I said, it's likely gonna be news based, in which we're either gonna continue this rally that we had today, or we're literally just gonna flip the script and we're gonna go right back to the downside to continue where we left off last week. All right. So those are the two, pretty much very simple. What I'm looking at. I mean, like I said, it's news based. That's best scenario that I can say right now. As of right now, just looking at that, to me that's bearish because we rejected the prior support, which is now resistance. So we rejected it, in which we should continue to make the next leg down. In my opinion, as far as S&P, Nasdaq, different story. I would say that Nasdaq actually looks more bullish than S&P because we can continue to possibly even make that full leg up, or we can form a right inverted shoulder and we can go straight up. So that's what I would say about those two. I like Nasdaq more than I like S&P. Is what I would say is my preference right now. One name that's really on my radar tomorrow. I was tempted to swing calls on AMD, especially after the news that they had with Tesla using their chips for the Model Y, if I'm not mistaken. Is beautiful price action today. I want to see this. You have a little bit of an ascending channel that we have going on here. So I want to see us end up breaking out once we can claim 166 off of the resistance level there, probably wick off towards that 166. Then my next target I'm looking at is towards 172 if we break to the upside here. So we see, chips really do have a lot of strength. I saw calls going out also on Nvidia, which I'm not going to look at Nvidia because one's going to run, the other one's going to run with it. But Nvidia also had calls going out to like the 350 strike as well. That was crazy price action that we had on Nvidia as well. So, and this one's pretty much news based. So we can see these both run yet again tomorrow, just because of the fact that so many buying pressures in Nvidia, and this one AMD is primarily news based. All right, so that's that play. Pointing out another one here that just drew my attention was AMAT. This is just a low key name here. We had this little horizontal channel that's been holding for quite a few months, and so we ended up having that massive breakout. Then we had that little drop down in which we retested support. So I'm just watching this one. I want to see a continuation on this one. If we get over this level here, over this 153 mark, then I'm looking towards a gap fill in which we enter at that 156 level. So this is just a beautiful one, maybe a low-key play here. Not a really popular name for most, but I do like that retest that we had. That was a solid retest that you had from the channel. If I zoom it out, you get a better image of that. You had a beautiful retest, and now you're getting that full reversal V-shaped recovery. So I want to see the continuation on that one over 153. Then I'm looking at that gap fill into 156 on AMAT. Another one was a firm, and this one's more of a speculative. I don't necessarily have levels just yet because this formation is still in the works. But I do notice possibly a head and shoulders formation on the firm. This is something to keep an eye on as you see the market rallying right now. Once we hit the reversal, then what's the names that you really want to look at for weakness? This is potentially one of those names that you want to look for weakness. So this is why I wanted to point that out. You have that left shoulder, you have a massive head, and you're potentially forming that right shoulder right here. So, and you do have your defined neckline. So once we end up cracking, I want to say it's likely going to be right around this level here of 120. Uh, right around 120, that would be where you want to end up looking at that potentially just dropping down. That sound like a robot. All right. All right. If I do, just give me a heads up there. But like I said, head and shoulders formation, and then you also have the large gap here that you want to potentially fill. As you saw, we wicked it down, so below 102. This is literally going to be a sub 100 stock eventually here, if this pattern does end up playing out. So that's something to just potentially watch. Keep it on watch here. There's not necessarily levels just yet because this pattern has not fully developed just yet. I need to see this start to develop at the top here and start to curl down. So that's something I just want to point out. Put it on your watch list. Keep it on, on your radar here as we continue this rally to see how this price action works. If we continue to form that right shoulder, and if you think about it from current levels down to what sub 100 here, as low if we fill this gap down to 92, you're looking at potentially about a $40 move on this to the downside. So that's something to keep in mind there, because that has a big play potential. All right. The other three names here, real quick, just pointing out also is Google. Google had a nice little move here earlier in the day. It gave back just a little bit, but you do have a rising wedge formation, so this is another speculative play here. If we do see any kind of weakness in the markets after the rally that we had, this is a name to also look at. And my overall target for the bear side will be going down to 2802. So this is another one. I do want to see it end up breaking down the support level, ideally first here, in which you're going to break down below 2870, and then that could start to accelerate to the downside. All right. Another one was NXPI, and I know that Tom's actually been pretty high on this one. So I just wanted to throw this one out there. I actually like the setup. I just caught it today after hours. So I want to see this one actually play out. You have a nice little inverted head and shoulders here on NXPI. Kind of a low key name, other than AMAT. This is another low key name here. If the market does start to continue its rally again tomorrow, this will be one that you want to potentially watch. As long as we're able to hold 218, we're looking at levels of 228 and then potentially 224. All right. And then the last ticker is just looking at one tech stock in particular, in which I know that they actually had a little bit of some after hours dark pool. So I'm gonna watch Apple here. Let's see what Apple's able to do out of this little descending channel formation that's formed. We do have this little gap down here, right around this 158 level. And so as long as we're able to break over 161, I'm watching 162.14 and then 163.71. All right. So those are the three levels I'll be watching. We want to see if Apple gets a continuation here. And after the move that we saw with Microsoft, it's likely that Apple can have its own type of rally similar to what we saw with Microsoft. So I won't be surprised if we actually break the high here and we get up back to that 165 level if this rally does continue. So that's something to just keep in mind here. But those are the key levels I'm watching: 160, 103, 162.14, and then 163.71 before the all-time high there of 165.70. All right. So those are names I'm really watching. Other than that, we'll see what the market gives us tomorrow. We'll tackle Amazon and Tesla in the morning, see what they really do. I'm not really looking at it just quite yet. So, other than that, though, I'll take two tickers real quick and we'll probably wrap it up. I know a lot of you are probably watching football also. Let me see. Someone mentioned Twitter. I know that Twitter actually had that news and it actually affected them pretty badly, but wow, that was a massive spike actually. Okay, I remember. It actually spiked, it didn't drop. It did end up giving back that gain, but ended up spiking initially on that news. Let me see if I pull out the time frame, probably out to the daily here. So that was my prior demand zone. As you saw, we broke down on it. Once we ended up breaking that demand zone that I had prior, that literally flushed. And it flushed hard. So key level that I'm watching now will be right here. Will be 45.20. That'll be the level that I'm watching right now in terms of this. Because this is just literally a knife catch right now. It'll be that 45.20 level. So that's what I will be watching. As far as that, I can literally just take this out right now. And so 45.20 is the level that I want to see hold. If we don't end up holding that 45.20 level, then it's going to continue to get more brutal. If I'm looking for another level, it's right around here. This is your next level of support that you have. And that's right around 42.79. So those are the two key levels I'm watching. First one is 45.20, and then below that is 42.80. So those are two levels I'm watching on Twitter. I think it's gonna continue to drop down. I don't really see this having any kind of much upside here. We've seen what's happening with Snap as well. Snap has not been able to get any kind of traction. These growth names have really just been getting tortured. And so once we do find a bottom, I would expect a little bit of sideways action, not necessarily a V-shaped type of recovery. Hopefully, if you end up catching the knife here, you got out on that little pump. Otherwise, if you're holding, it's a little bit tough right now. All right, because you got no continuation basically out of that pump that you had today. So that's the bad sign. All right. Other than that, I'll do one more real quick. I'm gonna call it a night. Let me see. Let's see. Let's see. Someone keeps mentioning Pfizer. All right, two people mentioned Pfizer, so I'm gonna look at Pfizer. Let's see. What are we looking at with Pfizer? I'm gonna clear the chart. Looks like a beautiful cup formation here. I do like that. That's a beautiful cup formation right now. So that's one thing. The only other concerning part is this gap fill in which you're already in the gap fill. That's a concerning part right there. So as you're already in the gap fill, it's more than likely that you're going to complete this now because that downside pressure is getting heavier. So you're going to complete that gap fill down to 51.33. I would expect your lowest support level here to hold right around this level. And this is pretty much would be my max pain level. Will be right around 50.40 on this. On Pfizer here. So if along with 50/40 holds, you're fine. But granted the fact that you had a parabolic move like this, and Pfizer's not a name that moves this much and gaps up that much, you're likely going to get back the entire gain that you had there and filling this gap to the downside. So that's what I will caution. Pfizer's just one of those names. They move very slow. So once you get a high volatility, and especially that gap fill, you're going to feel that down to the back to the downside. So that's something I will tell you about. I mean, granted the fact that let me see what it did after hours real quick. And I don't want to turn after hours there, but let me see if it did anything after hours real quick. It's up 14 cents, so not really a reaction to it to Pfizer. I mean, granted the fact that it had that news, it's really a sell the news right now is what I would say. All right, appreciate that, Randy. But Pfizer, I would just expect that to be a sell the news. Hopefully those of you caught the move the past few days here on Moderna. I believe NVAX had a nice little move as well before they literally just took a flash crash midday. And that was pretty much just a knife catch. If you caught that knife, then yeah, it paid if you got in and out quick. I know that NVAX completed about half of the knife fall, and then Moderna pretty much did almost a full recovery. So we'll keep the drug names on watch tomorrow. The other thing is that I know that Biden's going to also be laying out his plan. If I'm not mistaken, on Wednesday, there was a news alert that he's going to be laying out a plan to tackle the new variant for the winter. So that's something that could also be on radar for the drug names. So definitely continue to keep watching the drug names, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Nvax. Also, you could throw in BioNTech there. So those names you really want to watch. Keep it on watch here as we get into Powell tomorrow. See if they say anything about the drug names and also Biden laying out his plan for the winter. All right, guys. Other than that, though, I'll see you guys on live tomorrow. I do need to rest up. Got a little bit of congestion here. But I'll see you guys on live tomorrow. We'll see what the market gives us. I'm hoping this does not gap up again like we did tonight, like last night. So hopefully the actual price action is going to be more fluid come tomorrow morning. So let's see what it is. Again, we do also have Powell tomorrow morning, so do not rush it out the gate. I'll likely repeat myself tomorrow morning. You know, you'll hear me and Avery say that we're going to be staying cash for just a bit, let the dust settle, let Powell's news, whatever he's going to say, let that come out, and then let the market pick its direction tomorrow. All right? So I'll leave you with that. Other than that, go enjoy the night, go watch some football, and I'll see you guys on live tomorrow. All right?